This is how my story goes. Pain and joy, I've had it all. Had it all. Can I tell you my story? Story. Oh, this is my story. Yes, I tell you my story.
Welcome to the EN show, and today, drums rolling. I've got my sister here, Yvonne Mangunda. Yvonne, welcome to the EN show.
Thank you very much.
So, First Lady of Sport. I thought let's start at a high, right? Let's start at that title. Why First Lady of Sport? Like, where's this coming from?
I think it was like a couple of months or years into Star FM.
Yeah.
Muzwe Tuhadebe, he was one of my workmates at Star FM. He decided to call me the First Lady of Sport. And it's a nickname that started with Kero Shabalala. She's on Supersport. She's the First Lady of Sport. And I remember early days, I was very shy because I couldn't use it because I thought it's so vain.
Shy.
It's so arrogant. And then
you shy. Okay, let's rewind.
No, here. Like you know when you feel like maybe you're too in people's face, say I'm the First Lady of Sport.
Got it.
And I remember KVG saying to me, you need to own this name.
Yes.
Like when we call you the First Lady of Sport, you also need to call yourself the First Lady of Sport. So I then started introducing myself on Star FM like Yvonne Mangunda, the First Lady of Sport. And it spread. And I just ended up just taking it in to say, you know what? I might as well.
You might as well own it, right?
Yes.
But let's backtrack. So Yvonne, the actress.
Okay.
So first of all, I loved 263.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was because it was my generation. I don't know. But the characters were so alive and everything. So was that your introduction to entertainment?
The thing is, I actually didn't like TV acting. I was a theater actress.
Oh.
That was my passion. That's what I thought I would do for the rest of my life. So when I was in Form 4, I had a friend who was in the drama club at school, IFDI too. And she said to me, we've got John Reba, the guy who did Neria, Everyone's Child and all that. He's coming to audition. He's looking for youngsters from the ghetto because he's got this thing that he's doing. Right. So I went to my tennis practice after. I said, let me just go and see Blessing where they're auditioning, see how it's happening. So when I got there, they were almost done. Then someone said to me, why don't you just audition? And I did. And I got the part. I was in Form 4. I literally got my first paycheck when I was in Form 4 as a theater actress. I was going there during my exams. I actually wrote to my accounts exam coming from a hotel where we were doing this thing with John Reba because he wanted to do this film. So he wanted to get a feel of what it's like to be a youngster in the ghetto. Yeah. Then I joined the theater group, obviously. And one day we were just doing, the usual stuff we do at a community hall. And these guys from Who's Next was a TV show. They used to just go in the streets and interview people. So they interviewed us. We did the interview fine. Then months down the line, my mom says, no, you need to go to school. This theater thing, I go back to school. So I actually left the theater group for a while to go back and study. So one day I get a call to say the National AIDS Council wants to see you. So I went to their offices. And then I was told they were looking for 2 youngsters to go and represent the country in Barcelona, Spain. So they wanted a girl and a boy. And
how old were you?
I was 16.
Oh, my Lord.
And within the whole of, they only had peer educators that were male. So someone suggested, why don't we just go through Who's Next and see somebody that we like? So then they saw my clip. They liked how I was expressing myself. So I went to Barcelona. That was my first trip. I was 16. And from then on, my mom was converted. She's like, so I then became a theater actress. It became my life. And I even had a play, Wedding Night, that played at the Haifa. I did theater in the park. And when I was there, Walter Mparusa said to me, I think it'd work if you also learned behind the scenes stuff, camera work.
Right.
So he had a connection at Studio 263. He called them. They said, can she come? I get there and they said, it's unfortunate. We actually got an intern yesterday, so we can't take you. As I'm walking out, they said, by the way, we're having auditions for Jabu's girlfriend. Do you want to try? I said, fine. I get in there and I got the part. That's how I got Studio 263.
It's crazy.
So it really was like my journey where I thought I would be going isn't exactly where it went, because I Literally, I loved theater. I loved performing. I loved just being in front of the stage, and I thought this is where I'm going. And after Studio 263, the path that just changed.
So, but even before then, because you were talking about the fact that you were coming from a tennis match. So, sports clearly was at the very beginning of your
Has
journey.
always been. I started going to watch football matches as young as I was a toddler.
Is it because your mom?
My mom was obsessed with Caps
Okay.
United. So, like, you know how men take their sons to the games? My mom, she was a widow. So she used to take me to the games. And in primary school, grade 1 to grade 5, to grade 4, I was in Mvukas. I played tennis.
Right.
And then grade 5 to grade 7, we moved to Harare. We stayed in Highfield. I was playing softball. I was playing baseball. I was playing netball.
You're an all-rounder.
Yes. And then high school, I was at Krista Mambo. I was playing tennis. Then Form 4, I went to Highfield I2. I went back to playing softball. Then after school, I remember Zimbabwe hosting the World Cup, co-hosting with South Africa.
Right.
The Cricket World Cup. And I was so interested. I started teaching myself by listening to the commentary. And then after, I said, where can I play this game? And fortunately for me, because I stayed in Highfield, the biggest and black cricket club was right there in Highfield, Takashinga
Right
Cricket
there.
Club. So I then became a Takashinga queen. And I played cricket.
So wait a minute. Cricket started in your life at a young age?
Very young
Not
age.
now.
No, I played cricket when soon after like high school. It's always been like I said, I've always been sporty. So I guess at every phase of my life, I've always played sport up until I became a cricketer.
Okay.
Because then it was now club, provincial. Sometimes I would make the provisional squad, but I never actually made, like, you know, when you get called to the national team provisional squad, but I never actually did travel with the national team. So it was like the one thing that I didn't achieve. And I always thought I wanted to wear my name on a Zimbabwean jersey.
Oh my Lord.
And it never happened playing. And I remember calling my manager when I was now a media manager for Zimbabwe Cricket. We were in Abu Dhabi. And as soon as we got there, I get in the hotel room and then I hear the doorbell. So our kit had arrived. So I get there. So in cricket, they give you like a whole box that has just got all your stuff. So firstly, I see a box labeled my name.
Oh, wow.
I start opening it and I start taking out the warm-up kits, the hats, everything. Then I got to the jersey that had my name at the back. Believe me, like I cried. I remember calling the team manager. And she didn't get the fuss because she's like, I'm like, this is something that I wanted to do when I was a player. I never achieved. I just wanted to see my name on the back of a Zimbabwean jersey.
And Yvonne, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, for me, that is inspirational because a lot of our young people have dreams. It's one thing to conceptualize a dream. It's another thing to actually make it into a reality. So if you're watching, I am with Yvonne, the First Lady of Sport, and you do not want to miss this episode. We'll be right back shortly. Welcome back to the Ian Show. And so, Yvonne, we're laughing about the fact that, interviewing someone who's an interviewer, right? You've just made my life miserable today. I must put it on the table. But no, I resonate with that moment where you saw your name on the back of a shirt. It seems like such a small thing, but it represents so much because this is you seeing all the hard work that you've put in to be at that moment in time.
I actually think people didn't get it because I think what made it worse at Takashinga was that the bulk of the national team at that time was from our club.
Okay.
So from the very first international game that was played by Zimbabwe in 2006, when people went to South Africa, there were only 2 of us from my club that didn't make it. So you're literally in a team where everybody makes the national team. Even our coach was the national team coach was from Takashinga. And then they come back and they're all wearing their national team colors with their names at the back. So it was always that dream. So when it happened, I think everybody didn't get what's the fuss?
What's the big deal?
It's just your name.
Right.
But for me, it took me back to that time when I wanted it so bad and I'd achieved it. And my achievement had come, maybe God hadn't planned it the way that I thought would happen. It had happened in another different aspect. So now every time I don't take for granted, every time I get my kit and my name is there, I still don't take it for granted. I still get excited about the fact that This is Mangunda on a Zimbabwe jersey.
Amazing.
Yes.
And so, fast forward. So now I clearly see why you are the person that you are today. You had sport heavily, heavily involved in sport at a young age. You had this acting thing and this bug that just came from nowhere and took over your life at some stage. And then you were marrying the two, and then you became this soccer, commentator, and soccer of all sports. How people are very passionate about soccer. How was it to become one of the only, probably very few women in a room where people are talking about soccer and earning the respect of your audience? Because for me, that must have been very hard for you.
I think for me, my journey would not be complete without the fact that I was always surrounded by men that supported me. From the men that I left in the house, because I started my career already married, to my boss, Steve Vickers, to my workmates. Why I say that is because if you don't have that environment, you don't flourish. I remember from early on when we started, Steve told me to rank from 1 up to 5, what I liked most. From presenting, studio work, and all that. So, those aspects of journalism, producing, and all that.
Right.
And I always said I wanted to do food work. So, from very early, I was everywhere. I remember this one time meeting Norman Mapeza in Malawi. I just traveled by bus to go and see Chicken in the FC Platinum. And he said to me, "Wafako Harare." I said, "Yeah." He said, because I used to like take the bus to Malawi and then like until 5. I'll take the 10 o'clock bus that comes back to Harare.
Wow.
So to him, he was amazed because for me, I felt like I needed to do more.
Yeah.
So I would be everywhere. I would be covering everything. And it was very easy for me and fast for me to get my brand out there because dinenaro, and I'm very blunt. So they'd never heard that on radio. They'd never, in actual fact, women are not in football.
I was about
And
to
to
say,
actually
in
have a
women.
woman because would be on the daily sports on Star FM and there's
Yep.
4 of us. And I would be the most argumentative, the loudest, the one. Because the thing is, I had watched football from a young age. So I could relate, even if we're talking about Caps United in 96, because I was there watching the games, I could tell you.
But are those traits that are naturally in you though? Or do they come out?
I think
when
it's
you talk about
I
soccer?
think it's naturally in me. But the only thing I can attribute was because I was a public speaker.
Right.
And I used to do a lot of impromptu speeches and all that stuff from primary school. It helped on the aspects of confidence and language and everything. Yeah. But the other aspect of being argumentative and being very blunt, I think it's ingrown. It's something that I always want my point heard. And I will never agree to a point. And I think even when I started on social media, there were people that were just like, God, this girl in my comment section. Because I will never bow down. Doesn't matter if I put a post, you don't agree to it, and there's 20 of you. I'm going to argue with the 20 of you. And I'm going to type. And I'm going to, because for me, it's always about standing for what I believe, not what everyone says.
Right.
And I coined the term, Yaguti, my gender is my advantage. Because I say, I give an example. I'm like a person who's gone to a white party. And I'm wearing purple. When I say that, I'm the only woman in the room where there are all these men. Mm-hmm. So when I speak, it's easier for people to notice because they've never seen that. And they've never heard that.
Yeah.
And you're on radio. You're like, because Star FM is huge. So you're on this big platform and they listen to you every time at 6 p.m. and you're arguing with not just anyone. This is Steve Vickers, BBC, Super Sport, all that. Spencer Banda. Spencer Banda has been there since I used to watch him on TV, Howard Musonza. So you're not just arguing with anyone. You're telling people that are legends in the game with Iowa. So because I could argue my points. And I think that's where also women need to understand that you have to have the facts. In your job,
you have to be factual.
Men will always want to test and see how much you know.
Yes.
And if they see that you don't, they've got their gap.
Right.
So you have to have your bases covered. So there's so much more you need to do. Like I literally, from day one, my husband knew I will be that person at 10 p.m. watching a La Liga game start, and in the morning I'm going to work. Because if I don't do that, how do I go on radio and argue about a game that I didn't watch?
And so let's take a pause there because I think it's not even about sport. I think in any profession, to be the best, you have got to understand the business. It's so simple. You cannot be a teacher if you don't understand the content. If you can't be any if you don't. And I think sometimes we want to skim through. There are no shortcuts. You have to do it the hard way. But I remember discussing with you and you talking to me about a lot of backlash on social media to extent where you were like, "Whoa, okay, this is going
It
crazy,"
happened.
and we're gonna take a break. And when we come back, I want you to, because when you told me that, I was like, "So Yvonne, why are you still standing? Like, how can you be standing after that instance?" But we're gonna take a short break. So if you're watching the EN show, please don't go anywhere. I'm with Yvonne, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the EN show with Yvonne. So, Yvonne, we were talking about the backlash on social media. So, like I said, when you were telling me this, I was like, okay, so you're still in the business? Like, what are you still doing in the business? Tell me what happened.
So what happened is, it's I think it was like the first 3 years or so of me being on Star FM. And you know, Dynamos is the biggest club in the country.
Right.
So we had a transfer of, they called him the Prince, Roderick Mutuma. So he had transferred. He was just going to play for a South African club. So I went on radio and I said, the money they're paying for him is too much for a player like Roderick Mutuma.
Oh,
And there's a page called Timbare.coms. So they went on the page and they wrote, former Studio 263, Caps United supporter masquerading as a journalist, Yvonne Mangunda, says Roderick Mutuma is not worth the money that he was.
oh, wow.
I kid you not. At that time, this is the comment section was crazy. Like literally, chandisina kutukwa muziyoga. Apana chakasara, like ndakapedza. No, like literally when my boss, I remember my boss calling me Steve saying, don't listen to it, don't read it, that sort of
Oh,
thing.
wow.
And then my husband was like, "Ndakunopindura." I'm like, no, don't. But you know what then happened? Was when you've got something like that happen to you, and you wake up in the morning the next day and you are fine, nothing has happened to you, the day after and the day after, you then realize all they can do is talk on social media. They've got no power.
Wow.
So for me, it strengthened me so much early on in my career.
Wow.
Then I actually became more blunt then, because I then realized, you know what? I will say an opinion. You're not going to be happy. You're going to lash out on social media. But when you meet you at the match, you're like, oh, you're so good. You know how people are.
And there's
like
chapera.
you know, when you're reading on social media, you think streets,
I know.
people are going to kill that person. So it made me so much stronger. And it's also very funny that the person that I got dissed for and the team that I was dissed for, a couple of years later, I was
You
working at
worked
Dynamos.
for them.
I was working at Dynamos. But yeah.
Oh, I think you talk about something really fundamental around the fact that social media, you have to understand that it is people who maybe, and hurt people hurt people. This
Hurt
is
people
what I
and also
believe.
bullies.
Bullies,
Who cannot
yes.
say it to your face. That's why people open even ghost accounts.
Yeah.
Because they're not bold enough to say it to your face.
Yeah.
So social media gives them the power because you're not in the same space. They're not saying it to your face. But when they meet you, they can't say exactly what they were saying on social media to your face. Something that I learned to say, this is how it is. You won't find that. I think it's also happened even to Steve Vickers a couple of years later, when Highlanders and Dynamos were playing, and he said Highlanders have been robbed after a penalty wasn't given.
Right.
The way it was so vicious on social media.
Ooh.
I remember the next day him saying, "Should I go and jog? Are they gonna attack me?" And then he
Yeah.
went to jog, and nobody said anything.
anything.
He went to the next game, nobody said anything.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think that's where the thing is. You just look and say, you know, it's criticism. Obviously, once in a while, especially in first world countries, there will be the odd stalker or odd person who attack. But the rest of the people is just being behind the phone that gives them the power to say things that they would never say face to face.
So you know what? Online becomes a real reality for a lot of people. And it starts playing in your mind that you can actually then act on it. And I think the lesson here is that don't let that happen. Understand that online is online. It's a virtual universe. But you have to stay true to yourself. And so talking about staying true to yourself, you are now back at cricket.
Yes,
Tell
it's
me
been.
about Zim Cricket and what you're doing.
I am the media manager
Right.
for all national women's teams, but my official title is brand officer for women's cricket. So I joined Zimbabwe Cricket from Dynamos. When I left Dynamos, I then went to Zimbabwe Cricket. That was in September 2021. So it's been a while.
Okay.
And basically, my job is to push the Zimbabwe Cricket women's brand, to make people understand and know what's happening, and to also just enlighten people. Like recently, we had the island tour. You're trying to make people know about the game, because a lot of people don't understand cricket, and to even then say women's cricket, you have to make them know that we actually do have these things that we're doing for these games. So I also even run all the social media platforms. I control, the media engagement and everything concerning women's cricket at Zimbabwe Cricket.
Yeah. And so I was on your page, and I said, this woman, okay, you can't hide your passion around acting and all of that. You've got so many reels, and I was like, she's got different facets of who she is. Sometimes you're in your professional, position as the face of women's cricket, and then you're a mom, and then you are all these different things. How do you bring that all together and, be true to who Yvonne is?
I think for me, I was very fortunate that this whole thing happened when I was already married. So I went through this journey
With your husband?
with my husband from early days when when you go, like, I remember this one time we went Kwafarai, and this football player just comes. You know how football players, our mother, just being all, and he had to understand that she's working in a field where you've got people that have this certain conduct, certain way of doing things that you then adjust. But also the advice that I got early on from Steve, my very first out of town trip, he made it, you're going with your husband, so people know you're married, so people know,
important.
because a lot of times there's a perception and there's a way that people look at women in sport.
Yes.
To be very blunt, they think we're loose.
Yeah.
To even tell a person, Borandega, to them, it's like, I remember even when I was a teenager, I used to go watch football matches by myself. And the first thing that men think, they think was a drug. And sometimes you just want to watch the game like any other person. Like, I grew up going with a mother and going by myself to watch a football match. So even up until now, it doesn't stop me. You don't
need an escort to go with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that, but then what then happens when you then get in the industry, which is something that I always tell people that I mentor, to say, don't live to that reputation. You get in there, you have to be disciplined. You have to be straightforward.
And is this a message to young girls?
Yes, if you're promiscuous.
Right.
Because let me tell you one thing that I'll tell you. A woman in sport, you will be the target. When I say target, men that just think the newest thing in town.
Right.
So for you, you get there and you're being asked out by people that you grew up watching on TV.
Hero worshipping.
Or these big stars.
Yeah.
I go to trips where, literally imagine you go, like, let's say I went to Kosafa, where I'm staying in this hotel. Next door is probably like Kama Billiard, Knowledge Musona. All these big names. You're going to breakfast with them. If you don't then tell yourself, you know what, you came here to just do a job.
Right.
This is what you're supposed to do. And you conduct yourself in a good way. It will help you in the field, because there will be a lot that happens. It doesn't matter at what stage in your life you're in. There will always be people thinking, now won't try. So that's the message I can say to young girls, to say, if you're going to come into sport, make sure you got your morals right.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you won't go far. And they tell each other, it's a small community.
Oh, they communicate.
They tell each other, and then when you get in, you think, I'm the hottest thing. No, they're just telling each other, I'm done. Go and try. I'm done. And this is what happens. This is the reality of the situation. And you don't have the morals. They will all come. And to you, because, you're like, this is new.
It's excitement.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
No, that's something I learned early on. And it's carried over to say, even when I'm at home, sometimes you get football players wanting to give you a scoop at like 10 in the evening or 12 in the evening. My husband understands, because we've never had a situation in the house.
Yeah.
Imagine if we had situations, this is also what we hinder him, to say, don't continue doing sport. So at the end of the day, I've had that support because I've also understood that if I open the door by using the wrong means, I'm also closing the door for other youngsters that might come. Because people will just be like, it's gonna be you understand?
Yeah.
So every time I open a door, I need to open it right. I need to make sure what is making me cross that door is because of my ability to do the job, not other things. So that's something that girls need to know, that sometimes we shut doors on other women because of how we conduct ourselves and how it becomes a reference. Because Vagara, the men, they don't want us on their table. There are few of them that want
you
us
have
on
to
their
fight
table.
for it, yeah.
So if you already there are people that don't want you on the table and you do something, they'll find an excuse to chase you away. But every time you're an ambassador for the young girl who's going to come next, they need to have a reference point. And remember when I joined Dynamos,
No, don't tell the story yet, because we want people to watch EN Extra, okay? And so we're going to wrap this one out. But key message here is that if you are a young girl who is watching this show and you love sport and you've got passion for it, you have got to have a sense of self-understanding of who you are. Kuzvichengetedza iwewe semunhu.
Utozvichengetedza.
And understanding kuti that is what is most important. Yes. But Yvonne, it has been a true honor to have you on the EN show. And for those who are watching, we are going to continue this conversation on EN Extra. But thank you so much. And I know you have inspired someone out there. But so you have to come back on the EN show at some stage.
I'm so glad. It's so nice to be on the other side. Tell my story. I'm used to asking people about their stories. So it's nice for people to also hear my story.
Yes. And you have a phenomenal story. But thank you so much for joining us. This is EN. I am with Yvonne. And as usual, we are sending love and light your way. Welcome to EN Extra, and I'm with Yvonne. So, Yvonne, clearly we didn't have enough time, okay? Because you were talking some stuff, and I was like, yes, tell them. But I'm really passionate about what you are talking about. It's not even about sport, hey? It's about any young person who gets into a position and they need to understand, number one, what is your role in that position? What do you have to give? And have enough self-respect to be able to say, this I do not want to do, and this it will define me. Because you can't roll back, the film and go, I did not do that. Once watozvita, so, and you become defined and labeled as that, which takes away from all the hard work that you have been doing to make this a clean sport or profession for a lot of women.
I think it relates to all other industries.
Yeah.
To say there's certain times when you walk in a door and you're probably the only woman there, or there are two of you and not a lot. And every step that you make, unfortunately for the women, we are judged.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, we're judged. Because not a lot of people are still receptive to there are a lot of very male-dominated spaces that we're still entering. There are a lot of spaces where before there were only men there. Sometimes you're probably even the first CEO who's female of a company. Maybe you're the first media person. Maybe even in any space. And unfortunately for women, we're a brand ambassador wherever we go.
For other women.
Absolutely. Because what you do will either open or close a door.
But I have respect for your husband, my guy. Because let me tell you something. But murumo wako is a bigger shash.
I get to that a lot.
Yes, because I can imagine a lot of insecurities a man could have to see his beautiful wife going out there, spending a week with a whole crew of men, a month, ega, kufunga, and fungwa ndo zinotirasa all the time, because you start thinking so it just implies that your relationship is founded in trust.
It's founded in trust, and also sometimes there's certain ways that subtly you do to try and get that trust going.
Right.
Because
we're human.
If I can randomly just do a video call so you can see
that
where
no
I'm
one
at,
is in
what
the
I'm
room,
doing. And also, I don't close off, because when there are functions that are happening and I'm able to get a +1, I always go with him to matches.
Yes.
So he even has relationships with players, with workmates, whatever. If you see him, you think maybe he's involved in sport, because he's a very permanent figure in my life. So he also has to be to know the world that I'm in.
Yeah.
But like I said before, the way that you conduct yourself, even in the home, sports, the way you relate with your person, the way you're able to even communicate and respect each other will translate to what then happens in the career.
Yeah.
Because sometimes sports, even just a simple work trip, a simple workshop will get a hard time from their husband. Not to take away from the fact that, yeah, I did get a good one. Because a lot of men are very secure, and I have a lot of his friends that tell him, like, you'll come and tell me, you'll come and be like, I've had even women at church who come and be like, hey, Nezura, I was talking to my husband. He was like, and then didn't you understand? So there are men that look and probably think, from some you know. I think I'm very fortunate in that aspect.
You are.
Because a lot of things could have been shut down. Like I'm saying, the number of trips, like I literally traveled a lot during the time I was at Star FM. Like literally I was traveling a lot, whether it's local or it's an international, and he allowed that. I'm able to go to events where I MC and they finish like at 10, 11, and I'm able to just say, we're coming and all that, and a person would trust that you are where you said you are.
Right.
So I think I'm fortunate in that aspect.
And you've got a 10-year-old daughter.
Yes.
Who is just as passionate
in
sport as you. You're recreating yourself, Yvonne.
I am. And currently, the funny thing is, she plays cricket, Takashinga Queens.
Wow.
From early on, we used to go, like I have lots of pictures on social media from the time she was very young where I used to take her to matches.
Wow.
So she's a Cape United supporter. She's an Arsenal supporter like her father. Then I've got my son, he's an FC Platinum supporter, another story. But for my daughter, I think it's because of the line of work that I do. I found out early on that I also wanted to incorporate her. Remember this one time I made this blunder. I went with her. It was a blunder. I'll tell you why. That was the last time I went with a toddler to a football match where I'm working. So we get to Rufaro Stadium. She's like 1 year something. And I spent the whole game. Like, game is just about it. I says, Mama, let's go home. You know how kids are.
I know, like, let's do this now.
I watched the whole match. Because I took her to the matches from early on. And I make sure when I go out, I get them stuff. Like, I remember when I went to Egypt for AFCON, because she likes Mohamed Salah, I brought her all these stuff. Jaranzi Salah and all that stuff. Wow. My son loves FC Platinum. So it's just trying to give them options. Because I know from even a young age, I told you about the public speaking. We started from, she was very young. Then I used to record her. And I'd give her like a word, say fire. I'm giving you a minute, say something about fire.
Wow.
And do all these impromptu things because I'm also grooming her to be confident. She might not use it as a broadcaster, but wherever she goes, even when she does a PowerPoint presentation, people should be able to see that mark to say,
you know,
and then people will start saying, oh, that's Yvonne Mangunda's daughter. Then they can understand. That's how I'm trying to groom her.
I am stealing you for other platforms where you can do the same for other young women out there who need that. Because I think we've done it, we've perfected it for ourselves. Now I think it's to pay it forward and to give it back and to challenge other young girls to say, you know what? Speak in front of people and be confident and sit up straight and do all of that. But Yvonne, our time is up and I feel like we just need to connect again. But thank you so much for coming on the EN show. When I first heard your story, I think within 5 minutes, I said, okay, clearly you need to be on my show, right? So thank you for affording us this time. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me on the show and just getting an insight into my life. It's nice to talk about it.
Yeah. All right. And for everyone, please log on, subscribe, share. We are EN and we are sending love and light your way.